Welcome, Professional Rookies Podcast, episode 18. I cannot believe we have 18 already in the books. I'm your host, Rini Angolia, along with my partner, Brian Ferreira, Detective Brian Ferreira. I'm not a detective anymore, so I like saying it.
Why do you have
for you? Well, it gives you credibility.
Not really.
Yeah, I guess in today's age it doesn't.
No.
People are like, cops.
Yeah.
We hate them all.
I have no credibility.
But as I said, episode 18. So if you're new to this podcast, go back and listen to some of our older ones. There's a lot of different topics. So obviously there'll be something there I think you'll like. So, we prefer you listen to them all. But if not, find a topic and hopefully you enjoy our podcast. So anyway, how was your week, Beef?
Well, some good, some bad. So start with the bad. The Rangers are done.
They are
finished. They lost 4 games in a row.
Well, they played 20 playoff games in 40 days.
Yeah.
I mean,
they look tired at the end.
So, that's hard to do in the regular season, and you do that in playoff hockey, and they just ran out of steam. But how about Tampa Bay?
Tampa Bay, 4 in a row. I mean, and they were
going back. I mean, but they're going to the Stanley Cup for the third straight year.
Yes.
And they won the last 2. Could you imagine? But Colorado Avalanche are really good. Cale Makar, one of their great young defenders, happens to be a UMass grad.
There you go.
Won a national championship at UMass. So I'm kind of torn because my wife likes cheering for Tampa because obviously right down the road. So,
right.
But we'll watch. Again, playoff hockey's exciting.
Well, Jeannie's family are all Tampa fans, so I think I'm going to have to go. Well, the Florida family, the New York family is all Islander fans, but who knows? My daughter turned 16.
Sweet,
turned
16
the other day, and
bought her a Porsche, right?
Yeah, with all the proceeds from the podcast.
Then you got her like a Matchbox.
Yeah, I couldn't even
Porsche.
afford that with the proceeds from the podcast. But no, she turned 16. I'm very proud of her. And I thought last week I was like, man, I should probably say something before her birthday. But you know me, I do everything after the fact. So
I'm pretty sure she doesn't listen, but you never know.
No, she doesn't want to listen. But I'm very proud of her. I'm very happy for her. She's turning into a great young woman, and I can't wait to see what else happens.
They grow up fast.
Too fast, yeah. But besides that, we went up to Georgia, up to the mountains of Georgia. Not too bad. It was nice to get away from the city for a little bit, and now I'm back.
Yeah. Anything else? What else did you do?
That's about it.
Well, you were bitching about Jurassic Park not being good.
I was just going to say, we saw Jurassic Park 10 yesterday, right? 10. Is it 10? I don't know.
It's up there.
Holy crap. It was long, and it was... Okay. You know what? I'm kind of over these movies where they have like the cookie cutter, like freaking script, and they're just like...
It was okay.
Oh, my God. There's a cataclysmic event coming. The dinosaurs are all going to die, and everything else worked into it.
My wife and I, she'll... totally agree with me here. We're like a boring couple. We've been married over 20 years. I mean, I go to bed early. We're just boring, but we do go to the movies. That's the one thing. We go to early movies, but we do go. So we saw Jurassic Park, and I thought it was okay.
It was okay.
Now the nerd in me is about to come out. Top Gun Maverick, loved it.
I have to.
And not only did my wife and I love it. We loved it so much. We've seen it twice already. There's
really?
the nerd of me.
I didn't know you saw it
twice.
twice.
We went back again because we really liked it. So I wanted to go a second time just to really kind of get it all in now that I saw it once. And it was, I think it's just a great film. And again, like, not to be political, because we do not get political on this show, but like
we can't.
There was just a pureness to that movie.
Right.
To me, there was no agendas.
Yay.
There was no causes. It was just the perfect remake for that movie. The storyline that went on with it. Anyone saw the original Top Gun, which that's right in our wheelhouse. 1986.
Sure.
I mean, we're teenagers. So I just thought it was a great movie, entertaining. The scenes with the fighter jets. I just thought it was really, really good. And guess what? I'm not the only one that thinks that because, I mean, just look at the box office. It's been out a couple weeks, I think 3 weeks, and it's, I think, $400 million it's made.
Well, yeah, again, you talk about I've said this to Soph, my daughter. I've said, when I go to the movies, I just want to be entertained.
It's like sports.
Yes. I don't want...
Keep the crap away.
Yes, leave me alone.
Whatever side of the crap you're on.
Right.
keep it away.
Right,
Keep it away.
There's the two sides of the crap, just like you said.
That's what I mean.
Yeah. I just want to go watch a baseball game or a hockey game.
And if we're going to argue, let's argue about like the game and you're the fan of that team. I'm a fan of this team. Or let's argue about the movie. Oh, I thought the movie was really good. Oh, I thought the acting was bad. Let's get back to just the nuts and bolts of things.
Write a script, an original script. Don't have it be derivative of something else. And you know what? Make me forget about it for a little bit.
And that's exactly what this movie does, Top Gun Maverick. So yes, you need to get there and see it. Yeah. So,
did you see that Ranger fan? Did you see that video? The guy
he got knocked out, right?
Well, he knocked out the Lightning guy.
That's what I meant. He knocked out the Lightning guy. I saw still pictures of it, and then I saw him handcuffed. And I mean, his dad, which I think was senior, I think they had the same name, didn't make any excuses for him. He said he made his choices. Now he's got to live with them. He's banned from the Garden forever.
For life. He tried to claim himself. I guess he's trying to claim self-defense. I mean, you need to do something, but
people let their emotions get the best of them. Yeah. That's why they're called fans or fanatics. But you got to take a deep breath and understand it's a game at the end of the day. Yeah, your team, maybe didn't, win or whatever it is.
He should have just went to see Maverick. Forget about things for a while.
I tell you, though, I'm 50, right? Obviously, we know we did a birthday special for me. I was like, I can't get out of that movie twice. I'm like, where's the Navy recruiter? I need to sign up. I think I can't. I mean, I wear reading glasses, 1.50. But I think I could fly a fighter jet. That's how you get,
Yeah.
It's like when you came, Eddie Murphy. Yes. Anyone that ever remembers
Rocco.
Eddie Murphy and Raw.
Don't go there.
But it's classic when he's like, when the guy gets out seeing the Rocky movie, how like emboldened he is.
The Italian guy.
I'll leave it right there. I'll just leave it right there. It's just classic. But in all seriousness, Top Gun, back in '86, what it did for Navy recruiting, it's going to do it again with this movie with the younger generation.
I don't know about that.
Not gonna. Okay, let me rephrase it. It's not gonna do exactly what it did back then, but it's gonna do it to an extent where they are gonna get a bump. There's no doubt they're gonna get a bump from good people that want to do that. So, but if you haven't seen it, go see it. But all right, we're yapping away here.
You know what else people do to forget about life for a while? They go get massages.
So there you go. Very good segue. So last week's show, When Athletes Attack, if you haven't read it, listen to it, go listen to it. We had the Mike Tyson stuff in there, and not all athlete attacks were them being bad, right? A lot of it was, the people deserved it. So go back. But that we talked about at the end of that show, we were going to finally do the Deshaun Watson case and kind of get into there. That's where Brian came up with the massages, which is true. So that's what we're going to do this week, Deshaun Watson. So, we'll kind of go through this case. There's a lot of layers to it, criminal, civil, a lot of stuff going on now. I mean, it's right in the middle of it, but we'll give you our opinions, our professional opinions, our experiences, former detective, current detective, and we'll try to answer some questions, and you may not agree with our opinions, but that's what's so great about podcasts and radio shows, and sometimes we can agree to disagree.
And obviously with this show, we're going to have some mature adult subject matter. Correct. So I don't know. I'm sure everybody likes to listen to this in the car with their kids.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're not going to be crude and rude.
No, but
we're going to probably quote some things out of the reports that we've researched for this. So so just be aware this is a mature subject. So just a quick rundown. Now my reading glasses got to go.
Put the glasses on.
Quick rundown for those that may not know. So obviously Deshaun Watson, right now he's being sued, okay, by 24 separate suits of women who have given him massages, okay? These 24 women accuse him of coercive and lewd sexual behavior. Two of the allegations, two of the women are alleging assault, okay? Obviously, Deshaun Watson denies it all. This is part of what this podcast I want to get into, especially with you, Brian.
Sure.
I don't want to say there was criminal charges because there wasn't, but criminal allegations went in front of two grand juries in Texas. Both of those grand juries refused to indict Deshaun Watson. So that was kind of the beginning of it. Okay, so he does not get criminally indicted, but obviously there's something going on there, right? So now these 24 women now have filed civil lawsuits. And
Right.
again, I mentioned this before. Obviously, anything criminal, even with an indictment, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. So if it's beyond a reasonable doubt, you can be convicted, or the grand jury can say, yes, there's enough there that this needs to go to trial. And there's a saying in the criminal justice world that you can indict a ham sandwich, meaning it's easy to get an indictment because when you go to a grand jury, just the prosecuting attorney, so a lot of places they call them DAs, district attorneys. Here in Florida, we call it state attorney. Same thing. They just present the case. It's one-sided. There's not a defense to that. So normally, it's pretty easy to get an indictment. They did not get indictments in these cases, and so I want to kind of get into that in that podcast. But when he wasn't indicted, and so the criminality went away, that's when the civil nature really has turned up here with the 24 lawsuits again. To be held liable in a civil suit is preponderance of evidence. So it's basically 50.1 that you did or didn't do it against 49.9 that you did or didn't do it. I mean, it's just a tick over.
I mean, I'm going to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Here, but anybody who watched 5 minutes of the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, obviously that was a civil trial. That was not a criminal trial. And you could see, you can watch a criminal trial and look at the difference, and you could see how civil trials allow. And again, I am not a lawyer, right? But this is just what I've seen. They allow a lot more stuff.
A lot more leeway. A lot more stuff that's going to come in.
Yes, criminals very strict rules. There's hearsay is not admissible. And again, I don't think hearsay is admissible in the civil trials either. But there's more things that are allowed.
And there's things like, for instance, in trials that you and I have been involved in, where the person that's been arrested and charged and is going to trial, right? Like their past history. The jury doesn't know that, oh, by the way, this is an armed robbery trial that I am presiding over, or the juror over. And, oh, by the way, the guy that's being charged here, he's committed like 71 other robberies in his life. Like they don't get, there's things they just don't get to know. Right. Where if they knew it, they'd be like, oh, this guy's guilty. Girl's guilty.
Well, that's why they don't let it in,
Correct.
You have to weigh each case on its own merits,
Correct. And that's why our legal system, as much as people want to bang on it, our criminal justice system, and it is the greatest in the world. It really, really is. Yeah. So that's why when people want to bash America, it's like, take a deep breath and kind of look at the landscape of the world. And why do you think everyone wants to come to this country?
Well, yeah, exactly. Why are they all trying to kill themselves to get here? But
anyway, get on a tangent. So anyway, so here's some interesting stuff that you may not have known about Deshaun Watson in this case. Okay, so in a 17-month period from the fall of 2019 to the spring of 2021, he received 66 massages from different women. So you think, that's a lot. Yeah. It's about one a week. I mean, it's a lot in my book, but he is a pro athlete.
Really sore.
Really sore. So 66 massages, okay? 24 of those women, as we've talked about, have sued, okay? 2 of the suits came in the last, week, 2 weeks. And in the most recent suit, and this is all from research, I should say, New York Times has now done extensive investigative journalism. Multiple journalists have now got into this case. So it's not just one journalist. There's been multiple reports by the New York Times now on this case. One of the women in one of the most recent suits alleges that he masturbated in front of her during the massage. Okay.
That's a no.
There has been a woman who sued, but then withdrew the complaint because she stated, in quotes, privacy and security concerns. 2 of the women, as I mentioned, filed criminal complaints against Watson, but did not sue him. Okay. So there's a couple criminals where they didn't sue. Okay. 15 massage therapists issued statements of support for Watson at the request of Watson's lawyer, Rusty Hardin. And those massage therapists gave him massages in that period that we talked about, in that 17 months, okay? It says in this reporting that 4 therapists from Genuine Touch, which is a massage studio, I guess you would say, therapy group, that he's used, is actually contracted by the Houston Texans, the organization he did play for.
Well, I mean, you don't want to mess that up, do you? You want to come forward and say, yeah, this guy's an a-hole.
So that's kind of it in a nutshell. And what I want to do is talk about some stuff. And then I know you took extensive notes, and there were some things that kind of made us say,
right.
both ways, right? And I want to get into those discussions. But a few things I talked about Deshaun Watson's lawyer. He's Rusty Hardin. He's 80 years old. He's a well-known defense attorney from the state of Houston. Very experienced. If that name sounds familiar, he represented, among others, Roger Clemens. But he's represented a lot of high-profile clients. He's a very good attorney. So you're going to hear his name as we go through this podcast. But interesting little fact, and I think I told you this right before we went on air. So in 2013, God, I'm getting old. So almost 9 years ago, I did the national high school package for ESPN.
Right.
So people are like, oh, what is that? So every Thursday and Friday night, ESPN, and they still have this package, has a national high school game of the week that they broadcast.
Right.
And so in 2013, I was the analyst on that package, and Adam Amin, who's now went on and done great things, he's at Fox Sports, was the play-by-play. And it's funny because my daughter, Katie, goes, God, what happened to you? Adam's so famous now, and look at you. My daughter says that to me. That's my 19-year-old. Says that to me all the time. I'm like, shut your mouth. Real nice, right?
What kind of car does she drive?
Busting my chops, exactly.
Yeah.
A nice little sports car that mom and dad got her. But in 2013, in 2013, spoiled Brett. In 2013, the last game of that high school season, a high school package that Adam and I did, was Gainesville High School in Georgia.
Okay.
Who was the quarterback?
What
is wrong?
Tom Brady?
Deshaun Watson.
Oh, there you go.
You're so stupid, dude. People are like, oh, my God, beef.
I'm kidding, right?
No, I know.
Yes.
So Deshaun Watson, I did one of his games in high school. He was phenomenal. Obviously, he went on that next year and went to Clemson. We knew he was going to Clemson then. But, so I did his last regular season high school game at his high school in Gainesville High School. And I believe I should have written this down. I think it was like Lawrenceville, Georgia, Gainesville High School, but it's in Georgia. And so I did his game in 2013. So,
and now here we are.
Talking about chicanery going on with massage therapists. So
and I think we should probably say at the outset again, here I am, the voice of whatever. I don't know. I wouldn't call it the voice of reason, but listen, sexual assault is something that's very serious.
Very serious.
Sexual assault is something that should not happen to anyone. And, as a former detective and a current detective, it's something that we would investigate seriously and with every vigor. So if we make some, I wouldn't call them off-color comments or anything, we're not trying to poke fun at anything. So just understand that.
And at the end of the day, we've talked about this before because we're going to get into some comments that the lead detective in this case made. I believe she's been deposed, right? Is that where those?
She was deposed in the civil case, which is a
here's
nightmare.
My view, and I know you share it. When we get a case, and I don't care what kind of case it is, robbery, homicide, sexual assault, the facts are the facts.
Yes.
The evidence is the evidence. It is going to lead you somewhere.
Yes. It's
either going to lead you to a suspect where probable cause can be developed. It might lead you to a suspect where you believe they did it, but you're not going to have the evidence to give you the probable cause. Right. It might bring you in another direction where the suspect is, guess what? I don't believe he or she did it, right? Because the evidence brings us another direction. I think every good detective, you have to be very open-minded, right? Now, I tell people all the time that ask me, like, so you get a police report to start. Most investigations start with a police report, right?
Sure.
Most of them. So you read that report. Now, as you're reading a report, your brain is forming opinions. I mean, that's normal.
It happens, yeah.
But then you read a statement, and then that opinion starts getting moved another. You know what I mean? So you bring it all together, and it's a puzzle. You put it together, and at the end of the day, it takes you to where it is. And let me tell you, I've dealt with people that I thought were just genuine a-holes. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll keep it clean. Mm-hmm. Jerks.
Yep.
Okay? The evidence did not bring me to charge that person. Okay? And that's what and the evidence is the evidence.
Sure.
So and let's just keep that in mind as we kind of go through this.
I always tell people when I would talk to victims or suspects, I said, again, people lie. Physical evidence does not. And so in the grand scheme of things, testimony is good, but if we could back it up with physical evidence, even better.
Correct.
So that's a big factor in anybody's deliberations, a detective or a assistant state attorney, before presenting a case. What physical evidence do I have to back up what these people are saying? And if it's one person saying one thing and another saying another, then, okay, do we have a credibility issue on either side? So there's a lot of things that go into, are we going to charge? Are we not? Does this statement rise to the level of something that I can use?
Well, in a case like this, it's the old he said, she said, he said. Now, there's a pattern here, obviously, because there's a lot going on. And so we'll kind of get into it. But before we really get into the meat of the notes that you took, I just want to say for those that maybe don't know, or they know, they don't know the facts. So Deshaun Watson was traded from the Houston Texans to the Cleveland Browns. So this is what Cleveland gave up, okay? They gave up 3 first-round picks to get Deshaun Watson. They gave up a first-round pick in 2022, 2023, and 2024. They also gave up a third-round draft pick in 2023, and they gave up 2 fourth-round picks in 2022 and 1 in 2024. So they gave up a total of 6 draft picks, 3 of them being first-round picks, which is a ton for Houston to get in return, I think. They gave Deshaun Watson, and let me preface this by saying the Cleveland Browns knew all this stuff we're talking about was going on. Now, they've been really silent lately. They may come up now and say, oh, maybe there was more there than we didn't know. But if you do say that, that makes you look bad, because that means you didn't do your investigation that you needed to as an organization. But before you go, because I know you want to talk, they gave him the Browns gave Watson a 5-year, $230 million contract, okay? Yeah. The signing bonus was for just under $45 million. So signing bonus is your money, okay?
That's a lot of massages.
They give him a base salary of only $1,035,000. So you might say, why is the base salary so low? I think with Watson's agents in negotiating the deal, there's a thought there that the NFL is going to suspend him. Okay? So when you get suspended, you're not losing any bonus money, but you're going to lose your salary. Okay? So he could, if he gets suspended a year, which could still happen, he's going to lose the $1 million, but nothing of the $45 million. So you kind of see the lawyers, which most agents are lawyers, you kind of see them at work there, right? Yeah. With that contract. So I just wanted to say that before we get into, more in depth into the investigation.
Well, I'm just curious with that contract, was something written into the contract as far as, hey, if something comes up with this lawsuit, like, is there language specific to the lawsuits?
I don't think there is. Behavior? You would think the Browns would want to protect themselves, but here's the thing: if you write something in there, then you're basically saying, it just doesn't look good. You know what I mean? Like, you're either all in and you believe in the person that you just gave up all those draft picks for and giving him a ton of money, or you're not. But the fact that they gave him a $45 million signing bonus and then they do the base salary of $1 million, that's all you need to know when you're in the football world. That's all you need to know, that they are anticipating the possibility of him being suspended just by that contract.
I got to think they're looking out for him. So when you look at, you take somebody like Michael Vick. I mean, that guy had a hell of a reputation, but they brought him back. He played again, right?
Well, listen, absolutely. But
I think, again, it's the NFL's, the Browns are saying, okay, look, we don't want a person that's doing this, but at the same time, we know how good you are. And who we really got to feel bad for here? Baker. I mean, I like Baker, but
he's still there. I mean, a lot going on. But, I mean, for what the Browns gave up for him, the money they're giving him, if he gets suspended a year, boy, I mean, it's just kind of disastrous. Sure. But guess what? You made your bed. You now have to sleep in it.
Exactly.
So everybody knows what's going on here. But
okay, yeah,
you took some interesting
I did.
notes. We looked at a bunch of different reports and investigative journalism that went out, and there were some things that you found interesting. So where do you want to go?
Well, I mean, there's a couple different things here, and the word coercive came to mind. They talk about coercive and lewd sexual behavior. So it's one of those things. This is and again, I've not, just disclaimer, I've not investigated sexual crimes at all. I've never been a sex crime detective, but coercive is one of those things where that's got to be hard to prove, I would think, as an investigator. What was coercive about it, and how do you make somebody do something against their will, right? So that's one of the things that stands out. I think what we need to do is look at kind of what he was generally accused of, because I don't think we really talked about that yet. So realistically, he was accused of only. So in the cases, you have two of the cases in claimed sexual assault, and in those cases, he was said to have pressured women to perform oral sex during massages and grabbed a woman's buttocks and vagina. That's one of those things.
So what we know, though, from the investigation, those acts took place. The issue is, was it consensual or not?
Well, I don't know, because in the case, it looks like the lawyer said that the lawyer Hardin for Watson acknowledged that Watson took part in sexual acts with 3 women. So they were all consensual and all occurred after the massages were over, which is interesting because it's almost one of those things like he's paid them for the massage is over, so now you're engaging in sex.
Correct, because that would be, if you pay for a sexual act,
right,
that's illegal.
Sure.
By both parties.
Sure.
You'd technically have prostitution on the one end,
right,
and you would have solicitation for prostitution by Deshaun Watson.
Sure.
None of that was charged, but that's what pretty much a couple of the criminal complaints alleged.
Well, I think it's interesting here because Hardin says, he said, this is a quote, Mr. Watson may now claim he had consent to do what he did to these victims, but let's be clear, in their minds, okay, I totally butchered that. I apologize. This is from Busby, who is the attorney for all the women that are suing, okay?
Yeah.
And he was making a comment on the consent part that was made by Hardin, if you can follow all this. And what Busby said, I'm going to read that quote again because I kind of butchered it. Mr. Watson may now claim that he had consent to do what he did to these victims, but let's be clear, in their minds, he didn't have consent, period. Okay, so that's an interesting statement.
Correct.
It's a very interesting statement to me because in their minds, I think that's one of these things, it's kind of a qualifier. You understand what I'm saying? When we do interviews, we listen to certain things. When people say things to kind of qualify what they're saying, in their minds, how do you prove that?
Well, and that's the fascinating thing, because so people listening to this pod now, or that have really kind of gotten into this case, would probably say, okay, if the massage was over and then sexual acts began and the women didn't want them to keep going, why didn't they say no?
Right.
But so the coercive nature that they're talking about is, in my mind, that they felt like they couldn't say no because of who he was, the power that he had as a superstar in the Texas area. Am I reading that right?
Well, yeah, and I'm going to get into a quote by the officer, the detective, during a deposition. But again, you're looking at this and you're saying, okay, where and you're seeing this on college campuses now. You're seeing it with this consent issue of, I didn't give consent, but I didn't say no. Okay, well, what does that mean? You understand? And again, this is us extrapolating things from what we're reading, so there could be a lot more to this. But as we sit here and read what we're reading, and they say in their minds he didn't have consent. Well, okay, well, what did you say to them?
And I think that's probably the underlying issue.
Sure.
And again, I am trying to get in the minds of people, and as Brian just said, we're only going by the information we have, but I think that was the underlying issue that I'm guessing the grand jury had, and why they didn't indict criminally, because, it's again,
what evidence do you have to prove it one way or another?
Yes.
And if you can't come up with that that evidence that goes beyond a reasonable doubt, then how do you charge?
Now there's a pattern here with Deshaun Watson. There's a lot of things going on.
But again, okay, so let me read this quote. Let's go back to this for a second, because we're talking about coercion, right? We're talking about in their minds he didn't have consent. And let's look at, so the lead officer, the lead detective, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep calling her an officer. The lead detective in this case, her name was Baker, Detective Baker. She was from an agency in Texas. And she took part in a civil deposition I want to say it's kind of in between the first grand jury and the second grand jury, possibly.
I think
if I read that right.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm going to hammer on a couple of things she said, but one of the things she said, and again, I'm reading a quote. This is what she said, and we were talking about charges. And she said, 2 of them we considered sexual assault because of the way the statute is written that specifically speaks to coercion, okay? And we felt that there was enough to insinuate. We got to be careful about insinuating, right? Yeah. That power and influence was in the room, and it was coercive, Baker testified. And when power and influence is in the room, consent cannot be. That's a big statement right there. First of all, you're insinuating. So have you ever insinuated? I don't think that's a good idea.
And obviously every state statutes are a little different.
Sure.
Now, so in Florida, and I'm just trying to make this basic. So as a detective, you and I, we get a case, okay? If I believe I've investigated that case and I have probable cause, okay, and there's no doubt in my mind, probable cause, what I do, there's 2 things you can do, okay? You can write an arrest warrant. Mm-hmm. A judge gets that arrest warrant. They will read that probable cause in the arrest warrant. If they agree with it, they will sign it. You then have an arrest warrant where you can go make a physical arrest of the suspect, okay? Yes. The other thing you can do is what we call here is you could file the charges at large. So you do basically your same investigation, but in lieu of going to a judge, getting an arrest warrant where a physical arrest can now be made, you file those charges to the state attorney's office, the district attorney's office. They then review it, and they make the decision whether ultimately the suspect's going to get charged, where they can then go get an arrest warrant and arrest the suspect. And then, of course, the state attorney or district attorney can take that information and present it to a grand jury, which is what they did in this case.
Right. And in Florida, again, we're talking lawyer stuff here, but from my experience, the ASAs can take anything, the assistant state attorney can take any, from what I understand, anything to a grand jury. It mainly, first-degree murder charges have to go to a grand jury. Certain other crimes have to go to a grand jury. Now Texas may be different. And just so everybody understands, from what we understand, Watson was accused and was sued he was accused of incidents happening in Texas, Georgia, California, and Arizona. But all the suits are conglomerated into Texas because that's where he lives and earns his living.
Gotcha.
But the grand jury thing is that's when you present to a grand jury and they don't indict, that's it. It's done.
Yeah, you're done. Criminally.
Sure. What a lot of people don't understand too, even cops, when assistant state attorney declines to file or doesn't immediately file on a case. So how many times we've turned in cases and the state attorney, the ASA that we're working with will say, no, you don't have enough.
Correct.
Or, hey, I need, and we used to call them we still call them tasking sheets, right?
I need this, I need that, I need that.
And we'd go, what the hell?
I've written arrest warrants where a judge has signed with a probable cause, and then it gets to the state attorney's office, and they're like, and they want more. They want more, and then ultimately they drop the case. Well, that happens too.
Because they have to sign, when they file the indictment, when they file the information, we call it here in Florida, they have to sign the document saying that they believe they can prove that case beyond a reasonable doubt. If they don't believe that, they're violating their ethical code and they can't file it.
And I should say, right, beyond a reasonable doubt is greater than the probable cause that we deal with as police officers and detectives. So just so people understand that out there.
All right. So back to this.
Yeah.
I thought that statement about the power and influence, when power and influence is the room, consent cannot be. I don't know how you can make that absolute like that. Every case is different, and again, I'm not in her shoes. This Detective Baker. These are my opinions. She can say, "Hey, you're an a-hole for saying this," but how do you make that absolute? Because if I'm a billionaire or a millionaire, which I may be one day, right? And you know me, and it's a woman that somebody has sex with, right? Yeah. Does that mean it's automatically consent is not given? I don't understand that statement. I don't understand that statement.
And I think that's what, although apparently the statute reads that, I think that's the issue that the grand jury had. But while we're still on the grand jury, I did think it was fascinating that she, as the lead detective, did not testify in front of the grand jury. That, to me, blew my mind. I mean, we've talked about it. You've been in front of 10, 15 grand juries in your career. Right. I've only done it a couple times as a lead detective, but it's unfathomable to me that the lead detective wouldn't testify in the grand jury. Well, what's your take on that?
I agree because in anything we say here, grand jury testimony is sealed. It's secret. So I can't speak in specifics of any grand jury testimony I've ever given. However, the grand jury is very different than a jury trial.
Correct.
It's a fact-finding body. So you go there and you present the facts of the case as the lead detective most times. To give you an example, when I was a homicide detective, one of the things we had to do for many different reasons was go to the autopsy of our victim. Okay, one of those reasons why is obviously to see, if they're shot, where the shot placements and those types of things. Beyond that, though, we're there to talk to the doctor doing the autopsy so they can say to us, yes, this is a murder.
Yeah.
Okay. So when grand jury comes up, I can go to the grand jury. Rather than that doctor having to come in and testify, I can testify.
You're
that
all
I was
encompassing.
told.
Yes.
Right. Hearsay is admissible in grand jury, so I can sit there and say that doctor told me this is a murder.
Yeah.
And it was murder by gunshot. So that suffices for that. According to what I've been reading in Texas, the grand jurors are the ones that determine who they hear from in person. So that's not to say that the testimony of whoever of these complainants wasn't provided to the grand jury or was something that they didn't hear. It's just they didn't want to hear from them in person. So if this detective in this case didn't really have a lot to add as far as things that she did that couldn't be established by something else, say testimony or evidence or something along those lines, then she wouldn't have to testify, if that makes sense.
Because they would already know her opinion from her reports.
They could introduce her reports.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
I understand what you're saying. I
agree. It's not completely unusual.
But it still strikes me as odd in a case like this.
Well, I mean, according to this,
that the lead detective wouldn't testify, but that's just me.
They heard 6 hours of testimony.
Yeah.
6 hours.
I'm not saying they didn't hear it. Yeah.
Right. So, the Busby, the lawyer for the women, I guess, hammered on the fact that they only heard from one of the complainants. There was 8, I guess, or 8 or 9 for the one grand jury, and they only heard from one. Now, we kind of talked about it, and we said, well, if she's going to go in there and basically testify to the fact that, well, he did this and I didn't want him to, and he's saying he didn't do it, what else is there to prove?
Well, it's kind of like the great movie, A Few Good Men, when he says, I will stipulate that every person that comes on the stand is going to testify similar to that person. We don't need to call 24 people or 8 people or 10 people.
And I think that might have been what happened here.
Yeah.
Again, that's my opinion and assumption. But so that's what happened here. Now, as far as the grand jury goes, I want to go away from that for a second.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll come back to it. But I think that the deposition of the detective, again, there was a couple other things that were interesting in that we had started talking about this. And she said in the civil depo, she said, I start by believing all the victims. Now, that's one of those, we kind of already talked about this, but I just really want to hammer home how important it is to really sit there and be completely objective. Have you had victims lie to you?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So have I, right? A lot of times it would be something where, hey, my drugs were stolen. How many times? And not illegal drugs. We're talking about like, oxys or some type of Vicodin. I've had it a few times. Hey, I had a woman that staged a whole scene to pretend like her house was burglarized because she sold her oxys or ran out of whatever it was and she needed to get a new refill. So we do have that. So you have to be careful. I wouldn't say that you would tell the victims that they're full of shit or something like that. But you do want to...
nor believe or disbelieve.
Sure.
Again.
Sure. What does the evidence show?
Correct.
You have to go where the evidence shows.
Yeah.
And again, in sexual crimes, you have to be careful. I mean, if this woman or man comes in and claims some type of sexual assault because they're mad at somebody or something, now you've got to be really careful about that.
Let me tell you.
You have to do your
sex
job.
crimes detectives, you have to be the best of the best.
Yes.
It's, to me,
those are the hardest cases.
Just like a homicide detective. It's the best of the best. You have to be thorough. You have to know what you're doing. And there's a lot going on there, as evident from this case.
Sure. And one of the things she said was she starts by believing all the victims. She said, and they asked her, if she stands by that, she said the only thing that would change it would be provided defense provides something that refutes it, we're going to believe the complainant. So you got to be careful with that. Obviously, that's not the way we do our investigation. So, so now back to the statement again. What you look at here in this deposition is is it Hardin?
Rusty Hardin.
Hardin is questioning her. All right, and he's kind of getting to the crux of these criminal charges, because I think what he's kind of saying is if there's no criminal charge, I mean, the civil case is kind of weak on its own. And they got her to admit that it's possible the prosecutor had considerably more evidence at her disposal than Baker did, which is one of those things when they were talking about the decision for her not to testify in the grand jury. So that's one of the things they got her to admit. Again, they got her to admit that she believes all the victims right away. And then I thought he brought up an interesting point. One of the things he brought up in the deposition was about if the women got paid or not. Okay, and so she said where it was consensual sex, well, that would be prostitution. Talking about, because a few women came forward and said that it was consensual. They did have consensual sex with him after the massage. We already established that. So she said it would be prostitution. So then they went and started asking her about, well, would they charge, or why didn't they charge the woman that took the money and had sex with him? And they said, in generality, she said they would charge both. But then they asked, well, that didn't happen here. So, and then the detective said, I don't make those charges. I don't get to make those charges. So I thought that was a kind of a good line of questioning from Hardin, because it's like, well, hold on a second. If you're believing them and they're saying this, well, they've admitted to committing prostitution.
If you're a good defense lawyer, you're gonna come up with all that, right? I mean, there's a lot of billable hours there, I know. I'm sure Rusty Hardin is very expensive, but it's a great point. So obviously, what he's getting at is in the criminal side of it, right?
Right.
If obviously if Deshaun Watson paid for sexual acts, then you have a crime on both sides. And I mentioned this earlier. Sure. So you'd have prostitution on the one end and you'd have solicitation for prostitution on the other end. And he's basically asking the detective, was anybody charged with any of those crimes? And no one was. So he said, well, then what are we doing? Is basically he's, being a good defense attorney.
Right. The detective also said, Detective Baker also said that she did not have access to Deshaun Watson at any time during the investigation. I think that's a good lawyer thing to do, is not make your client available.
Yeah.
Because then really, I mean, you've got these women. It's one of those things. It's tough though, because I know for me as a detective, talking to that person is one of those things that allows me to get an insight.
Absolutely.
If you can't, then you have to listen to what the complainant said. Do you have anything to refute that at that point?
Yeah. It limits the investigation when you can't interview the principal suspect.
Sure, but what a lot of people lose focus or lose is you still have to be able to make the case.
Correct.
Just because they came in and said something doesn't mean you can just go, okay,
And I should say too, just because it's high profile, we've done cases all the time where we get called in at 4 a.m. and a 7-Eleven got robbed and they arrested the guy, and I go in and interview him and I read him his rights, and he says, I don't want to speak to you.
Sure.
And that's his constitutional right. And so there's no interview, and that's it. You walk out.
But beyond that, and again, not to give away, I don't think it's anything that's secret, but one of the things that people ask this question, so I think it might be an interesting thing to kind of bring up. One of the tools at the disposal here in the state of Florida is a polygraph test. Mm-hmm. A lot of people think they hear polygraph, which is what? A lie detector test, right? A lot of people hear that and they say, oh, they're not admissible in court. Absolutely, they're not. However, it is a tool that we have, and a lot of times it will be offered.
We've used that tool a ton. Sure. And again, not just what the polygraph may say, just to get the response, see what the response is from the person you're offering the polygraph to. It's fascinating. We've done it a ton of times.
Right. But beyond that, here's another thing that people don't think about, and this is what we present to people. You can clear yourself. Granted, it's not something that you should have to do. I agree with you, but if somebody's leveling an accusation against you and it's a he said, she said, and you want to clear yourself, that's one of the tools that we can use
Yeah.
to clear you. Now, we can't ask a sexual victim to take a polygraph. We cannot do that. So we have to be careful.
Yeah.
But it's a tool. And a lot of people hear that and they go, well, it's not admissible. Sure, it's not. But like you said, it's worked.
We've solved some big
people come off their stories and go, oh boy.
We've solved a couple big cases.
Sure. I think that's pretty much everything we have as far as research on this. I think it's an interesting case. I mean, you want to talk about, I am not a psychologist either. I'm nothing, but you talk about like a pathology almost, like this sexual fetishism almost of, is there something that is going on with him where he wants to, like this whole scenario is something that it's like a trigger for him. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying?
Well, and there was one in some of the leaked deposition testimony where he ended up getting a massage from a woman he reached out to that was I believe she was a flight attendant. She was just kind of in training to become a massage therapist. So she really wasn't even a massage therapist. And he drove to her, and it's just you read the grand jury, or excuse me, the deposition testimony statements, and it's just really interesting, and just there's something going on there with Deshaun Watson. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah, go ahead.
There was the one point we wanted to talk about. I thought it was pretty funny. Hold on, I got to keep. Did you the part where apparently in the New York Times article, their investigation showed when he was going to get these massages, he had a non-disclosure agreement that was given to him by the Texans for the masseuses to sign. I'm sorry. The article says therapist. I don't want to offend anybody. Yeah. I don't know if I thought that was pretty interesting.
Well, and they said, I don't have his name, but they said it was the head of security for the Houston Texans that gave it to him. He's a former Secret Service agent. So that's the other interesting thing too. Listen, I have nothing against feds. We've worked with a ton of feds. Mm-mm. But everybody thinks if you're a Fed, that's the end-all, be-all. And so all these NFL organizations, the majority of them, their head of security are either former FBI, former Secret Service, former U.S. attorneys. And I'm thinking, guys, just go hire a good old-fashioned retired detective that just knows the ins and outs of everything, because that's what you're dealing with.
Well, especially
when you're dealing with an organization and players, issues here, issues there, travel, because a lot of times you're dealing with the travel with other law enforcement agencies when you come into the airport, and but I guess that's neither here nor there. That's just, I was on my soapbox for a second there.
Well, listen, the Fed credentials carry a lot with it, and I think it stands out, especially if you're going to, that guy's probably getting six figures to be the head of security at least.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So absolutely. I think it just is one of those things, and us locals think that we're worth it too.
But the interesting thing now is, so you got listen, he got through the criminality part of it, okay? But now the civil part of it, again, talked about it, preponderance evidence, a lot less. You have 24 suits right now, right? A couple just got added, so you never know if that goes up. They're going to try those individually. So that's just, individual suits, individual depositions. It's time consuming.
Are we sure about that?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I read that. I don't think maybe they're going to put it into one. I think there's been some discussions between the attorneys.
Like a class action suit?
Well, for settlements, right? Because at the end of the day, something's going to happen. I don't think there's been any agreement. So let's say it even is one suit. You still got 24 different complainants. So that's 24 different depositions per 24 different incidents, right? Accusations.
Right.
There's no doubt. My point is, it's very time consuming. It's very much on your mind. A lot of stuff going on. If you're the NFL, if you're the Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson, there's a lot going on here. Yeah. And we talked about it in an earlier episode when we did a pod on gambling. Calvin Ridley got nailed for a year suspension coming up by the NFL for gambling on a legal site at the time, but he gambled on the NFL and gambled on his team when he was hurt. You're not supposed to do that, but they gave him a year like nothing. So is the NFL going to step in and suspend him? Because although we got through the criminality, we talked about it. There's a pattern here. There's a lot of issues going on here maybe at the end of the day, they aren't criminal, but there's a lot of things going on that probably at the end of the day aren't appropriate.
Okay, are we saying they're not criminal, or are we just saying there's not enough material or evidence to prove the criminal?
Do you
see what I'm saying? I think that's a big thing. That's a big part of it.
That's always the fact. So if I misspoke, yes, there wasn't enough.
You didn't. I'm just saying
there wasn't enough in that grand jury's mind to prove it. I don't have all the information, so I can't.
I don't. Like, you want to say, like, what the hell is going on here with him? After a while, hey, you know what? The massage just isn't worth it. You know. What the hell's going on?
Exactly. Or how about like someone that works for the team? I know that the team is contracted some agencies. Like, how about like, listen, 66, because here's the issue. 66 different massage therapists in 17 months. I can tell you, if I get a contractor that's good, if I get a plumber that's good,
I'm going to the same
if I get an electrician that's good, I call the same person every freaking time, right?
Yeah.
So if I got a good massage therapist, I'm sticking with it. So right there tells you that there's something going on.
Listen, you just got $45 million. Okay, here's an idea. I mean, if all it is massage, find some person, I don't know, take your pick, whatever sex you want, and pay them money, right? Just to sit there or like make sure nothing happens. I don't know how you do that.
Which tells me there's more going on here, right?
You know, I mean, like, hey, I want you in here to make sure like nothing is going on. I mean, Jesus Christ. I'm sorry.
Way to
if
go.
I offend anybody.
You offended me. Okay, you offended me.
Yeah, well, you know, he doesn't like the massage. He doesn't like him getting the massages either. So listen, mind your P's and Q's. What are you doing?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of times these issues are just like self-inflicted. Like, what are you doing? But there's something going on. Something in the mind of Deshaun Watson going on there, right? And listen, it's still got a long way to go to play itself out. So if you're really probably more intrigued now than anything, like I said, New York Times did a lot of really good investigative journalism. USA Today has done some as well. So there's a lot going on. This thing's far from over. I think he's probably going to ultimately get suspended because there's so much going on here. But we'll see. What do I know?
And these are our opinions.
Correct.
We are not saying he's guilty. We are not saying he's innocent. We're
just kind of
presenting the facts and throwing some opinions.
We're presenting some stuff and giving you some opinions based on our personal knowledge of cases that we've dealt with here and there.
God, that's like the third disclaimer I've given today.
Well, you kind of have to in today's day and age because everyone wants to like jump down your throat. And
I should have been a lawyer. I'm telling you, I should have went to law school.
If I had it to do over, if I had to do over, I'd be a fireman. You get to sleep on duty. I give them that shit all the time. It's the truth. But
hey, what do you want for dinner tonight?
But if I was going to be an attorney, I'd be a defense attorney.
Yeah.
Knowing everything I know now on the law enforcement side, oh my God, I would be a defense attorney. I would be a defense attorney all day long. One, they make more money. Two, all like. You know, as someone that was on, and so you see, and I'm pretty sure Rusty Hard used to be a prosecutor.
He was.
All the good defense attorneys were prosecutors at one time, and they turned over because they know all the little ins and outs, and But yeah, for sure, this headache for Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns is not going away. It's not going away from the NFL. I read, I think Deshaun Watson has 1.4 million followers on Instagram. I don't know, it might be Twitter, Instagram, whatever, and he made his account private. Like he can't, he just...
You think we should have our audience chip in and get him a Massage Envy gift card?
No, I think, I know.
No?
I think, again, go to one of your trainers for the Browns.
Could you imagine like being? Well, hold on a second. We're dragging now. I gotta cut myself off, but I gotta say this. Reading in the article, I guess he went
to someone's mom's house.
Mom's house. He got 3 massages from one lady. He went to her mom's house to get massages. So I mean, like, Jesus, guy. But it's like,
and he was, could
you imagine being the masseuse?
And he was reaching out to a lot of them on social media. Again, one wasn't even a quote unquote registered massage therapist. She was just starting to do it. He traveled to meet her because you can read in the articles. They show the social media, or I guess they're probably private messages that she gave up. Just a lot of.
Do you imagine working in like one of those massage places, like Massage Envy, and you come out and it's like, "Hi, my name's Deshaun. I'm here for my massage." You're like, "Oh crap, no, and no." But anyway, so yeah, lesson here or moral of this story is, Deshaun, if you need any advice from us, we're here to help.
This headache is not going away.
Yeah.
So it's really just just beginning for the civil side of this thing. So we'll have to see where it goes. So,
Dad, how's Dad doing?
Dad's good.
Did you like that segue? We went from
Dad
the
is,
bad massages.
Dad is better. I told him just get out and walk to a neighbor's house and back, and then the next day go 2 houses and back, 3 houses, and he's taking my advice. So he's doing good.
Can I go back for a second?
Go whatever you want.
Because we really haven't used this yet, but do you think the outcome of all of this for Deshaun is going to be a happy ending?
Really? You really, really went there. Right?
How could you not?
Is that why you did that other disclaimer back in the beginning?
What?
So, whatever.
It's like a happy ending. I don't know.
I can't even answer that. You made someone listening to this laugh, and you probably made the other half cringe, but whatever. Exactly. Whatever. And with that, thanks for listening.
Are we going to call it a day?
To the Professional Rookies Podcast. Yeah, we're going to call it a day now. I've been really busy personally. I got a ton of stuff going on. I have no idea what we're going to talk about next week, but we'll come up with something.
Next week. Well, we'll come up with it on Sunday.
So I have had requested.
Maybe even Monday morning.
This is straight into more of the law enforcement side of it. And I think this would be a fascinating pod. Is like we talked about when you're a police officer and you meet someone for the first time, or you go to a party, with a girlfriend or a friend, and people meet you for the first time and they realize you're a cop, and they always say, "Oh, so you're a cop," and then that's always followed with law enforcement questions, traffic ticket questions, and then, "Hey, have you ever shot anyone? Hey, have you ever been shot at?" So I think next week, we're gonna share some of our more interesting stories. Brian's shaking his head no, in our 20-year career, because I got some good ones.
I'm going to have to get that thing that makes my voice sound different, like the disguised voice next week. So when I tell the stories, you can't tell it's me.
Well, listen, because you're still active, because you're such a Chicken Little, if you don't want to tell any of your stories, and you can sit there and listen to mine, because I can fill up a pod with stories in 20 plus years in law enforcement. Some funny, some serious.
I know someone we can call for a story on you.
No, we're not calling him.
Yes, we are.
No, we're not.
There's a lot.
Everybody, just inside baseball here, everybody text me and Brian when they start listening to our pod, and they're like, "I got stories on you. Why don't you tell them about this? Why don't you tell them about that?"
I'm not even talking about him. I'm talking about somebody else.
There's a ton of them out there. A ton of them out there.
Exactly. Anyway,
we already told the story about when I threw up the double quarter pounders.
We need the other side of that story.
So, all right. That's another episode of Professional Rookies. Please give us 5 stars if you like us. Give us those reviews. It helps us move up the food chain in the podcast world, and we appreciate you listening. Thank you very much. Have a great week, everybody.
Have a good week, everybody.